Hey, it's Dom over at Rydell of Independence. I'm going to go over a video with you guys of me doing an engine harness replacement and fixing some oil leaks on a Grand Cherokee. Going ahead and getting the vehicle set on the hoist, going to raise it up in the air so I can disconnect everything underneath and be able to drop the drivetrain out the bottom. Getting the AC machine hooked up, gonna evac the system, so that means I'm gonna pull all the Freon out so I can put it back in later so I don't lose it during the repairs. Went ahead and got the vehicle up in the air so I can go ahead and take all my underbody shields off and disconnect my harnesses that need to stay with the body, and the actual motor and transmission come out the bottom of the vehicle. So here I'm gonna start taking all the fluids out of it so I don't make a mess, and go from there. Started draining the coolant out of the vehicle, and the AC machine actually got done evacuating the system, so I'm going ahead, get my printout, know exactly how much I recovered from the vehicle so I know exactly what to put back into it. So what I'm doing here is disconnecting the lower and upper radiator hose. What these hoses do is actually transfer the coolant from the motor to the radiator, which actually blows air through it to cool the coolant and then goes back into the engine. Going ahead and getting AC lines disconnected from the AC compressor here. This is where I'm actually removing the upper intake manifold so I can access my harness and be able to access my bolts on the back side of the motor. This is where I actually removed the upper intake manifold. What I'm doing here is I'm getting out the special tool that will actually quick disconnect my transmission lines with a spring retainer. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this collar on, twist it, and then I'll be able to extract the line off the quick coupler. You can see I struggle a little bit trying to get these on there. It is in a very tight spot. Went ahead and got the transmission lines disconnected. I went ahead and dripped them down into my drip tray so I could catch all the fluid so I don't make a mess. I'm going to go ahead and tuck these out of the way because these are actually going to come with the motor and transmission out the bottom of the vehicle. What I'm doing here is disconnecting my PCM. The PCM actually is what controls the drivetrain, tells it what to do. So the main harness actually goes straight to this. It's like the brain of the vehicle. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect that, and I got to put that with the engine that it's going to come out with. What I'm doing here is I'm disconnecting my jump post location and the fuse box. So all the power wires that control like your jump, your alternator, and your fuse box, that all is actually associated with the engine harness. So you have to make sure you get that all retained close to each other. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the engine itself so it'll be ready for when I'm removing.
All right, got the motor all tied up, everything disconnected from it so that I can essentially just drop this straight out the bottom of the vehicle. Everything's tied up here, so you can make room for it to go down nice and smooth without getting caught on anything. I'm gonna go ahead and get underneath it, disconnect everything I need to do, drain the oil out of it. Gotta move some of the stuff that's bolted to the frame so that nothing will try to come down with the vehicle that's gonna go up. Undo my steering shaft and the lines and stuff like that, because all my coolers are going to stay on the front of the vehicle essentially, and all these body mounted lines and the harness and stuff like that, the body mounted stuff will stay up here because the whole vehicle is going to go up and the powertrain is going to come out the bottom.
I'm gonna go ahead and drain the oil out of the vehicle so when I go to do the rear main seal, we aren't making a mess all over the floor. Remove these skid plates that are on the transmission so then I can start getting all the exhaust bolts loose. starting to disconnect the electric power steering motor, and then I'm also going to undo the power steering lines from the rack and pinion so that they can stay up with the body with the cooling system. Going ahead, disconnecting the power steering lines from the power steering cooler. I'm going to go ahead and drain these out into the pan. Going ahead, disconnecting the exhaust clamps so that the upper part of the exhaust can stay with the drivetrain, and then the back part of the exhaust is going to stay with the body. You see now that the exhaust is actually detached from the upper part of the exhaust, so then it has room for the drivetrain to come in front of the exhaust system. Disconnecting the drive shaft from the transfer case now, and then the drive shaft will stay up with the body when the drivetrain is dropped out of the vehicle. What I'm doing here is I'm removing the front wheels off the vehicle so I can access suspension components. I'm actually going to remove the suspension components that are mounted to the subframe. So I will disconnect the brake calipers, the upper ball joints, and the struts from the actual lower part of the cradle. So what holds the drivetrain into the vehicle is going to be disconnected, and then it can come out as a whole unit. So I'm going ahead, I'm going to tie the brake calipers up because they're going to be with the body. I'm going to go ahead and hook them onto the upper control arms here, and then they will stay up. I'm using the hammer to smack the upper part of the spindle so that the ball joint will release out of the knuckle. Disconnecting the shift linkage. This is what puts your vehicle into neutral because they're actually electronic transmissions. This is a manual override, so I'm getting the cable out of the way because this is actually going to stay up with the body as well. Now that I'm getting the transmission crossmember out and undoing my cradle bolts, this is actually the last procedure before you drop the drivetrain out of the vehicle. Got the lift table out. This actually will support the motor and transmission and the subframe all as one unit out of the vehicle. So you can see I'm taking my last few cradle bolts out, and now the drivetrain is actually supported by the lift table itself. I got my assistant Tristan over to help me guide it out of the vehicle. Essentially what I got to do here is pull the harness off and go ahead and get this motor split from the transmission. So I basically got to strip down everything attached to the motor, pull it out, and got to do a reseal and put a new engine harness on this. So I'm going to go ahead and get that taken care of and start pulling apart now. Now that you see that we got the drivetrain out of the vehicle, you can tune in next week and see the repairs that we performed.